The Great Depression had around 25% of the people that were unemployed. And this is when things get a little bit spicy.
1 out of 4 people have been unemployed for 27 weeks or longer.
We are in a silent depression and the government won't acknowledge what we're doing is because cost of living is way too high and these companies just can't keep up. They are laying everybody off and then rehiring people for like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 less. They're basically...
Somewhere in America tonight, a worker will finish an 8-hour shift, walk past apartments they cannot qualify for, and sleep in a car behind a store. A mother will fold school clothes inside a motel room she cannot afford next week. A senior will wait on a housing list that may never call. This is not the old image of homelessness America was taught to ignore. It is something colder. Rent has started outrunning wages so badly that working no longer guarantees shelter. The country did not run out of people willing to work. It ran out of places workers can sleep. For years, homelessness was sold to the public as someone else's problem. A problem under bridges, a problem downtown, a problem attached to addiction, untreated mental illness, or bad decisions. Those things exist, and no serious person should pretend the crisis is simple. But that old explanation is now too small for what is happening. The official federal count found 771,480 people experiencing homelessness on a single night in January 2024. The highest number ever recorded in that report, and an 18% jump from 2023. That number sounds massive, but it still does not show the full picture. It does not capture every worker sleeping in a car, but still showing up clean for work. It does not fully reveal the families doubled up on couches, the people hiding in weekly motels, the seniors rotating between shelters, or the renters living one argument away from being asked to leave a relative's house. America counts tents better than it counts people who are still trying to look normal. That is what makes this crisis so dangerous. It is not just visible homelessness, it is the invisible collapse happening before the tent appears. The first stage is usually not dramatic. It looks like a rent renewal, a $200 increase, a new fee, a paycheck that arrives 2 days late, a medical bill, a car repair, a shift cut from 40 hours to 32. One small financial shock hits a household with no cushion, and suddenly the entire structure begins to crack. The apartment market has turned that crack into a cliff. Many landlords still require tenants to earn around 3 times the monthly rent. So a $1,600 apartment is not really a $1,600 apartment, it is a $4,800 a month income test. Before groceries, before electricity, before gas, before insurance, before childcare, before debt, before anything else that makes life possible. A person can technically afford the rent and still be denied because the screening formula says they are too risky. That is where people get trapped in the most brutal way. They are not poor enough to be instantly rescued. They are not rich enough to be approved. They may have a job, a car, a phone, a routine, and a plan. But the housing system does not care about effort. It wants documents, deposits, credit scores, income ratios, clean rental history, and sometimes a cosigner. If one piece is missing, the answer is no. Application fees turn rejection into another bill. A renter can spend $50 here, $75 there, sometimes hundreds of dollars just applying for places they never get. Move-in costs can demand first month, last month, security deposit, utility setup, pet fees, and moving expenses all at once. What looks like a simple apartment search becomes a financial obstacle course. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, the front door is not locked with 1 key. It is locked with 10. Once that door closes, the car becomes the last room in America. At first, people tell themselves it is temporary, just a week, maybe 2, just until the next paycheck, just until the next interview. Blankets go in the back seat. Clothes are folded into bags. Important documents get hidden under the seat. A phone charger becomes survival equipment. The trunk becomes a closet. The cup holder becomes a kitchen drawer. The car is no longer transportation. It is shelter, storage, privacy, and panic, all packed into one metal box. Every normal act becomes strategy. Where can you park without being noticed? Which gym has a shower? Which fast food place will let you use the bathroom without buying something? How long can the phone battery last? Where do you keep medication cool? What happens when police knock on the window at 3 a.m.? What happens when winter hits or summer heat turns the vehicle into an oven? A house person goes home to rest. A car-dwelling worker goes to a parking lot and hopes nobody forces them to move. The car also creates a terrifying dependency. If the engine dies, the person does not just lose transportation. They lose their bedroom. They lose their closet. They lose the place where their pets sleep, where their work uniform hangs, where their paperwork is stored. A $900 repair can become the difference between being hidden homeless and fully exposed outside. In a country built around cars, the vehicle used to symbolize freedom. Now, for many workers, it has become the final barrier before the pavement. This is why the phrase, "just get a job," sounds so hollow. Millions already have jobs. The problem is that the paycheck no longer reaches the rent. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour, the same level in effect since July 24, 2009. In 2025, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition estimated that a worker needed $28.17 an hour to afford a modest one-bedroom rental and $33.63 an hour for a modest two-bedroom. That gap is not a budgeting problem. It is a structural collapse. At $7.25 an hour, full-time work brings in roughly $1,160 a month before taxes. That does not compete with modern rent, even before food, transportation, phone bills, utilities, clothing, medical needs, or emergencies. Even workers earning much more than minimum wage can find themselves locked out when rent, deposits, and approval standards rise faster than paychecks. Look at the jobs that keep the country moving: home health aides, delivery drivers, dishwashers, hotel cleaners, cashiers, warehouse workers, security guards, school aides, food service workers, nursing assistants. These are not imaginary roles. They are the people who clean buildings, move packages, serve meals, care for the elderly, stock shelves, and keep hospitals running. Yet in many cities, the people doing the essential work cannot qualify to live near the essential jobs. The contradiction is almost cruel. A worker can serve lunch in a downtown restaurant, then sleep miles away in a car because every apartment nearby requires income they do not have. A hospital aide can help patients into beds, then go to a shelter where no bed is available. A warehouse worker can pack household goods all night, then return to a motel room draining $80 or $100 a night from a paycheck that was already too small. The economy needs these people every day. The housing market treats them like they do not belong. From the outside, working poverty can be hard to see. A person may wear a uniform, answer emails, swipe a badge, or drive a decent-looking car. They may still buy coffee because the coffee shop has a bathroom. They may still have a phone because without it, no employer, landlord, or caseworker can reach them. They may still look presentable because looking homeless can cost them their job. The public sees survival tools and mistakes them for stability. Then exhaustion takes over. When rent consumes half or more of income, life becomes a permanent scramble. Laundry waits, car maintenance waits, doctor visits wait, dental problems wait. Sleep gets cut first because sleep is the one bill nobody sends by mail. Weekends disappear into errands, gig work, applications, and catching up on everything that fell apart during the week. People call it burnout because that sounds manageable. What it really means is that survival has become a second full-time job. Families experience the collapse even harder. A single adult sleeping in a car is already in danger. A parent with children faces a different kind of pressure. School schedules, child safety, clean clothes, homework, meals, medicine, transportation, and shelter rules all collide at once. A motel room may hide the crisis for a while, but it can drain hundreds of dollars a week without building any path toward a lease. The family is indoors, but not stable. One checkout date away, the floor disappears again. The 2024 homelessness count showed a major rise in families with children, and reports around the federal data noted that family homelessness rose sharply during that period. That matters because children do not experience homelessness as a policy category. They experience it as changing schools, hiding embarrassment, losing sleep, keeping belongings in bags, and learning too early that adults can work hard and still not control where the family sleeps. Shelters are not always a simple answer. Some are full, some separate families, some do not allow pets, which sounds small until the pet is the last emotional anchor a child or adult has left. Some shelters have curfews that conflict with night shifts. Others are unsafe or too far from work. A parent may choose a car or motel not because it is comfortable, but because it keeps the family together, close to school, close to work, or away from conditions they fear. The crisis then moves into a group America rarely wants to talk about: people who cannot simply work more. Disabled adults, injured workers, seniors, and people on fixed incomes are being crushed by the same rent market. In 2026, the maximum federal SSI payment is $994 a month for an eligible individual. In many rental markets, that amount cannot cover a basic apartment, utilities, groceries, transportation, medical costs, and phone service. The math fails before the month begins. That exposes another broken promise. Disability benefits were supposed to prevent destitution. Retirement was supposed to mean a small measure of stability after decades of work. Housing assistance was supposed to protect people when the private market became impossible. Yet fixed incomes are meeting flexible rents, and rent keeps winning. A senior can do everything right for 40 years and still reach old age in a market that demands more than their monthly check can provide. For disabled workers and injured first responders, the humiliation is deeper. A person can serve a city, care for strangers, or risk their body on the job, then end up priced out of the same city they helped protect. The market does not ask what someone gave. It asks what they can pay this month. Service does not stop eviction. Injury does not lower the rent. A body can break, income can shrink, and the landlord portal still expects the full amount by the same date. Housing assistance should be the emergency bridge, but in many places, the bridge is jammed with people waiting. The shortage is enormous. The National Low Income Housing Coalition reported in 2025 that the lowest income renters face a shortage of 7.1 million affordable and available rental homes, with only 35 affordable and available homes for every 100 extremely low-income renter households. When the shortage is that deep, personal responsibility cannot manufacture apartments that do not exist. This is the part of the story people miss. Someone can apply for help, update their paperwork, answer calls, visit offices, gather documents, wait months, then years, and still never receive housing. Waiting lists become their own form of punishment. The person is told help exists, but the help is always somewhere in the distance. A voucher that never arrives is not a safety net. It is a promise floating above a cliff. Once every door fails, the tent appears. By the time a tent shows up under a freeway or beside a sidewalk, the public is seeing the final evidence, not the first event. The rent was too high. The job paid too little. The shelter was full. The car broke down. The couch option ended. The documents were lost. The landlord said no. The waiting list did not move. The tent is not the beginning of the crisis. It is the visible scar left by everything that failed before it. Encampments are not safe, and pretending otherwise helps nobody. They can create sanitation problems, fires, theft, fear, block sidewalks, business disruption, drug activity, and real danger for the people living inside them. Children should not be growing up near traffic, rodents, violence, or unstable conditions. Store owners and residents have real concerns when public spaces become survival zones. A serious country should not accept tents as permanent housing. Yet sweeping tents without housing people is not a solution. It is displacement with a cleaner photo afterward. A block may look cleared, but the person still exists. Their need for sleep still exists. Their medical condition still exists. Their hunger still exists. Their rejected application still exists. Their lack of income still exists. The sidewalk is empty for a moment, and then the crisis reappears somewhere else. The most damaging part of a sweep is not always the tent itself. It is what gets lost with it. Identification, birth certificates, work boots, medication, phone chargers, caseworker numbers, court papers, housing applications, children's belongings, family photos. A document that took weeks to replace can vanish in a garbage truck in minutes. The city calls it cleanup. For the person trying to rebuild, it can feel like being pushed back to zero. Here is the tension. Residents are not wrong to want clean, safe streets. Businesses are not wrong to want entrances open. Parents are not wrong to worry about their children walking past dangerous conditions. Public order matters, but public order without housing becomes a loop. Clear the camp, move the people, lose the documents, break the connections, wait for another camp, repeat. The city wins a morning. The crisis wins the year. Money has already entered the system at a scale most people cannot even picture. California became the national symbol because a state audit found that nearly $24 billion was allocated for homelessness and housing over 5 fiscal years, while the state did not consistently track outcomes across major programs. That number lands like a thunderclap. $24 billion, and still the tents remain visible. Still the cars fill parking lots. Still the shelters overflow. The public hears billions and expects keys. The person outside hears billions and wonders why no one has a room. Some of that money goes to necessary work: shelters, rental assistance, services, outreach, supportive housing, treatment, staffing, and prevention. But when spending grows and homelessness remains visible, trust begins to collapse. People start asking whether the system is built to end homelessness or simply manage it. Management has its own language: programs, grants, dashboards, outreach teams, pilot projects, emergency responses, coordinated entry, temporary beds, navigation centers, case plans. All of those can matter. Some save lives, some move people indoors, some prevent eviction. But bureaucracy can become a maze where the person in crisis is studied, counted, referred, assessed, and still left outside. A system can be busy and ineffective at the same time. Outreach workers often stand at the center of that impossible gap. Many do heroic work under brutal conditions. They replace IDs, connect people to shelters, help with benefits, drive people to appointments, de-escalate crises, and keep people alive long enough for a door to open. The problem is not compassion. The problem is capacity. A worker can bring water, blankets, hygiene kits, and food, but if there is no unit, no voucher, no treatment bed, no safe shelter slot, and no landlord willing to accept the person, outreach becomes maintenance instead of exit. That is the cruel line. Survival aid matters, but it is not housing. A bottle of water can help someone through the night. It cannot end the night. A blanket can prevent cold. It cannot create a lease. A meal can keep someone alive. It cannot fix the rent gap. When a country substitutes supplies for exits, it does not solve homelessness. It makes homelessness slightly more survivable while the machinery that creates it keeps running. The machinery is protected by stigma. As long as housed people can believe homelessness only happens to a different kind of person, the system does not have to change. The stereotype acts like a shield. It says the people outside are addicts, criminals, irresponsible, lazy, broken, or beyond help. Once that story is accepted, rent does not have to be questioned. Wages do not have to be questioned. Waiting lists do not have to be questioned. Sweeps can be called compassion. Punishment can be called order. But the wall between them and us is thinner than many want to admit. Harvard's 2025 housing report found that 22.6 million renter households were cost-burdened in 2023, spending more than 30% of income on housing, while 12.1 million were severely cost-burdened, spending more than half. When housing eats half the income, one emergency can become a housing crisis. One job loss, one illness, one rent hike, one car accident, one family breakdown, one missed week. Poverty is expensive because every shortage creates another charge. Late fees, reconnection fees, application fees, motel taxes, storage fees, towing fees, payday loan interest, laundry machines, bus fare, replacement documents. A person without savings does not simply lack money. They are forced to pay penalties for not having money. The deeper they fall, the more expensive survival becomes. Motels reveal that hidden economy clearly. A family may pay $90 a night because they cannot gather $3,000 to move into an apartment. That is $2,700 a month for instability. No kitchen, no lease, no equity, no guarantee. Just another night purchased at a price higher than rent because rent requires approval and the motel only requires payment. The poorest households often pay the highest price per square foot in America. Storage units tell the same story. People pay to keep furniture they hope to use again, baby photos they cannot throw away, work clothes, documents, dishes, tools, and the last physical proof of a life before displacement. Month after month, money goes to preserve the possibility of returning to normal. Eventually, even that bill can become too much. Then the unit is lost, and the past gets auctioned away. This is how homelessness spreads inward without always looking like a tent. It appears as the worker sleeping in a vehicle, the mother paying for another motel week, the senior waiting for a voucher, the disabled person choosing between medicine and rent, the family doubled up in a crowded apartment, the teenager doing homework in a shelter, the delivery driver charging a phone at work because the car is home. These are not separate stories. They are different rooms in the same collapsing house. America has enough wealth to see the crisis clearly. It has enough data to understand the shortage. It has enough workers to know the wage gap is real. It has enough public anger to know encampments cannot continue. What it lacks is the courage to admit that the old answers are failing. Telling people to work harder does not build affordable units. Telling cities to sweep faster does not raise wages. Telling charities to do more does not replace a functioning housing system. The final warning is not hidden anymore. More than 771,000 people counted homeless on one night is not just a statistic. A $33.63 housing wage for a modest two-bedroom is not just a report number. A 7.1 million affordable home shortage is not an abstract policy problem. A $994 SSI check is not enough protection in a market built for incomes far above it. These numbers are signals from a system under pressure. Tonight, someone who worked all day will recline a driver's seat and try to sleep without being noticed. A parent will tell a child the motel is temporary while counting the days until checkout. A senior will wait for a housing call that may never come. A disabled worker will guard paperwork like it is gold because without it, the system cannot even see them. And somewhere, another rent renewal will arrive, quietly pushing another household toward the edge. That is the unsettling part. Homelessness is no longer just what happens when someone falls off the edge of society. It is what happens when the edge moves under working people's feet. The people in tents and cars are not failed exceptions. They are early warnings. If America keeps treating them like a cleanup problem instead of a rent and wage emergency, the next wave will not arrive as a headline. It will already be parked outside trying to sleep before work.